In the 90s, a game released that is arguably one of the most important games ever made. You played a hazard suit wearing, crowbar wielding scientist where your facility went to shit, and you had to carve your way through aliens and soldiers looking to destroy all evidence. But what happened to all the other scientists? They were chewed up, shot, dropped down elevator shafts. Do you know what? Fuck Half-Life. Let's talk about Abiotic Factor. What's up, you beautiful beasts, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be convincing you that Abiotic Factor is one of the best survival games ever. It's easily in my top 3. Like, we got Valheim, Subnautica, Abiotic Factor. Easy, no competition. Anyway, if you enjoy any part of this video while I ramble on, make sure to hit the like button and please subscribe. I'm so close to 1,000 subs. I want to hit it before October and it would be a massive, massive help. The basics of Abiotic Factor are simple. You play a scientist stuck in a facility when shit hits the fan, and you have to try and survive while making your way through the different areas of the facility. It's really straightforward and it's really good fun because all the different areas of this facility are ingenious different biomes. Like in a normal survival game, you'd have like a plain or a dark forest or a snowy hill or an arid desert. But in Abiotic Factor, you have areas like research and development, manufacturing, HR, and all these different areas have different resources based on them, plus different dangers. Now, you start off by making your very own scientist, and the customization is fun but not particularly in depth. You get enough to feel different from the other people you might be playing with, but it's not exactly anything spectacular. However, you also get to build your character in terms of what type of scientist they are, whether they're like a construction scientist, or maybe they're a member of the security team. Maybe they're a herbologist, if that's still a thing. I'm not even sure. I don't do science. But either way, you get to make your very own character with their own perks and flaws, etc. And it allows you to make your own playstyle as you proceed through the rest of the game. The idea is you go into this facility and have to explore as things get worse and worse and worse. The deeper you go into it, the more you find out about the story and the more varied the dangers become. From not only aliens that have broken through from another dimension, but also environmental hazards that have started to seep through portals, as well as soldiers trying to contain and eradicate everything. And you have to come up with some crazy equipment to be able to deal with all of it. But it's okay, because you've got science on your side. The exploration of this game is one of the biggest selling points because it's unlike any other survival game that's existed so far. You're not punching down trees or smashing boulders with your ball sack so you can build a shitty little shed in some woods, but instead you're starting off by building a little campsite above the ceiling in the rafters of the HR offices so you can hunker down of a nighttime when all the lights go off and robots start stalking the corridor. It is crazy atmospheric immediately, which is surprising considering you're just stuck in a scientific research facility. They really managed to pull off something spectacular when it comes to the environments that you're in. Not only that, but all the different biomes have different crafting materials that are associated with them as well. So you'll start off in a cafeteria area making armor from dinner trays and building a crossbow out of rubber bands and pens, but eventually you'll find yourself making a cannon that fires circular saw discs that you found within manufacturing. So as the game progresses through these different areas, your characters get better and bigger technology, which is dope. Not only that, but as you progress through the facility, you find areas that have some weird and wonderful stuff going on, such as portals to other dimensions full of disgusting monsters, to broken down nuclear reactors where you have to try and traverse the area without getting a big old dose of radiation poisoning. But it also has this amazing way of looping back on itself that's really reminiscent of things like the original Dark Souls, where you'd open a random door and you'd be like, holy shit, I'm back here after 5 hours of wandering around completely fucking aimlessly. And there's a trans system that combines everything together and is a wonderful flashback to Half-Life. Of course, when it comes to survival, one of the biggest factors for me is the base building, and Abiotic Factor gets it right. One of the things that I thought was going to be really annoying actually turns out to be really fun, in that you generally have to keep moving your base. As you go through the facility, you can either make little checkpoints that you can maybe hide out in and one big base, or do what I did, which was load my base up onto trolleys every now and again and push it around further into the complex. Now, I realize in hindsight, I probably should have just built one big centralized base and smaller outposts, but apparently I like my life hard. Regardless, you build some pretty simple stuff up to some pretty awesome stuff. You start with your workbench. You start with a simple campfire. You start by stealing a sofa to use as a bed. You'll end up building things like a big kitchen that you can then go fishing and turn the fish into decent food. Or you can kill and butcher the aliens and start eating them if you don't mind a little radiation as a side effect. You'll end up building your own base as well as some other standard of living things such as a garden or a toilet, which oddly enough go kind of hand in hand. You'll also have to build some traps to defend your base over nighttime, and these come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, from giant spinning fan blades to electrical mines and more, and it all means that you have to tap into the really robust power system that the game has. Everything takes power, but power turns off at a certain time of night, so then you need to build batteries, and it all works in this ingenious, beautiful way where you have to think a little bit about everything, and your base goes from a workbench to suddenly 12 power supply bricks, a workbench, a giant cafeteria, and it's just you playing the game, but you've ended up building a small civilization. And you don't have to rely just on traps when it comes to keeping yourself safe. There is a combat system, and it's okay. There's nothing to piss your pants over, but it is pretty serviceable, using spears, shields, crossbows, and a myriad of different guns. The weapons are what make the combat interesting in this rather than the combat itself. You're not going to be popping out sick combos, but you are going to be using a flamethrower that's attached to a spear, so do you know what? I'm happy with it. You start off with really simple stuff such as a kitchen knife. Eventually you might find some more heavy ordnance such as a Glock. But as things progress, you'll end up making some absolutely sick weaponry from, as I say, a spear that has a flamethrower attached to it, an electromagnetic gauze rifle, and more. Pretty cool how you go from these mundane items to these absolutely bonkers contraptions that decimate anything that steps in front of you. Of course, as you progress through the game, there is a story, which is one of the things that sells me on Abiotic Factor. It's the same thing that sells me on Subnautica and Valheim. There is a win condition to this survival game, and having played a fuckload of DayZ as well as so many other survival games, you have no idea how happy I am to have a win condition when it comes to a survival game rather than just a monthly server reset. The idea behind Abiotic Factor is not only escaping but finding out what went wrong in the first place. Now, I'm not going to go into depth about the story because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but you do meet a bunch of different characters throughout the game that are other scientists and beyond. Some NPCs will start walking around freely and even act as traders depending on if you helped them or maybe even murdered them. But otherwise, the story is pretty straightforward, and as you progress through it, things will start to take place within the facility that'll change how the game plays, and that keeps you on your toes from start to finish. One of the cool things about Abiotic Factor is it's very clear the devs have played games like this before and have added some very nice quality of life additions. This comes in the form of upgrading your benches eventually so that they can start pulling in things from nearby containers. That's not only your workbench but your cooking bench as well, and as I said earlier, anybody who is a survival and crafting gamer knows how good this addition is. There is nothing worse than getting into late game survival games and having to search through 20 fucking storage cupboards just to find one items. And you can be the most prolific organizer in your group that you've ever wanted to be, but sometimes you will just not find the item you're looking for love nor money, or you'll have that one dickhead on your party who just shoves anything anywhere and drives everyone else to madness. But in Abiotic Factor, you don't have to worry about this because you can just upgrade your workbench and it'll just do it for you, which I love. One of the other things I love is when you find new materials, the game lets you know that you've figured out something new to build, and then with a little bit of research, you can instantly build it. And that's great because then you don't spend forever wandering around looking for one item that you just haven't found yet. Alongside this, as you progress through the game, your character begins to feel better. And I don't mean like you get used to the game. I mean as your character upgrades their skills, they genuinely get better at different things and you feel it. It feels like a bit of a weird quality of life addition that you're not just great from the get-go, but it makes you feel like you're improving as you're playing the game. And that's a good takeaway because a scientist isn't just going to be good with a crossbow straight away, but the more you use it, the better you are. And it feels good to see your scientist go from this bumbling idiot with a mustache to this Rambo-like warrior taking on aliens and mercenaries alike. One thing I do think is important to touch on for Abiotic Factor is the fact that it has quite lo-fi visuals. It's quite clear that it's taken some inspiration from Half-Life, and that can be said even for the graphics. They're definitely very 90s, and while a lot of games are doing lo-fi graphics at the moment, especially indie ones, I think a lot of people are instantly put off at the fact that it isn't the highest graphic fidelity possible, but genuinely, and I say this with my full chest, if you miss out on games because they're not the highest graphic fidelity going, you are doing yourself as a gamer a massive disservice. Abiotic Factor is a game amongst many that have dialed back how their graphics look so that smaller teams with smaller budgets can make better games to play. And I think this is a shining example that you do not need shiny graphics to have a fantastic game. The graphics are serviceable, beautiful in some situations, but they are not photorealistic, and I think that makes for a better experience overall, and it plays pretty well into the comedic nature that flows throughout this game. The game's atmosphere is a tale of two halves. It is a comedy game. There are many aspects where you will laugh at it, such as a co-worker who crawls around on all fours, and if you feed them snacks, they'll go and fetch you goodies. But also it hits you with heavy doses of genuinely scary atmosphere. The first time the lights go off within the facility and you see the ominous red glow of the robot security guards as they stomp around, my arsehole clenched so tight I could shit diamonds. And then once you put them to rest and you realize they're not that scary, stuff starts going wrong with the portals that have been opened, and as aliens begin to seep through, so does some of their atmosphere, and again, that puts you on edge. As a thick mist descends through the facility, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you suddenly see shapes moving throughout it. And I think the game does a fantastic job of keeping you on your toes while bringing a lovely sense of levity throughout all of it. You can go from absolutely being shit scared one moment to having a little bit of a giggle as you pose your armor stands so it looks like they're all sharing a cup of coffee. I have very little bad to say about Abiotic Factor, and if you know me, if you know my content generally, I try and find something bad just so it doesn't seem like I'm glazing nutsacks all year round. When it comes to Abiotic Factor, I struggle. Okay, maybe the combat is a little bit lackluster, and sometimes it can be easy to get turned around or maybe a little bit stuck trying to figure out what happens next. But with careful observation and a little bit of smarts, you can figure it out pretty swiftly. The game looks good, the interconnected facility is mind-blowing, and the humor has made me proper belly chuckle sometimes. Not to mention, you can play the entire game with your mates. When it comes to setting the standard for new survival games, I genuinely think Abiotic Factor is one of, if not the best survival game of recent date. If you haven't played it yet and you've got mates or just yourself that loves playing survival games, this is a must buy. I cannot understate it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I've tried something new in terms of the script. I've tried to be a bit more improv. I've tried to give more of me when it comes to explaining the game. So let me know in the comments below what you think, and leave the word science below to let me know that you made it all the way through the video. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the support. Check me out on my other channels such as Twitch and Twitter. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ra.
I've been drinking Kool-Aid cameras like I did when I was 9, 'cause I like to pretend that I haven't lost the time. In the end, the nostalgia, though it tastes fine, I can only drink a couple 'cause it feels like a lie.